Hi, my name's Tom Ollerton, and this is the Shiny New Object podcast. This is a podcast about marketing technology, and every week I interview someone from the marketing and advertising game that I respect, look up to, and I think has an interesting perspective on technology. And today we have Penny Parnell from Not on the Highstreet. I didn't know this, and I did do a bit of research on LinkedIn, obviously, but your job title is Leader of All Things Creative.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's basically, we're a company and a brand that don't always do things in the regular way, perhaps, shall we say. And a lot of the titles seem very, very serious and perhaps not awfully creative. So we were sort of trying to come up with what I was doing for a living, and that seemed to be, that's my responsibility. There were lots of other ones thrown into the mix that I shan't even go through now, but...
Come on, what was the worst one?
Colonel Creative.
Colonel Creative.
Yeah, there was a great big long list, but yes, that's where we arrived. So it's basically looking after anything creative that goes out of our business through any part of the business, as it were.
So you are like a creative overlord. So you've got to sign off for everything?
Overlord, that's quite good. I should have gone for that one.
Colonel Overlord.
Yes, yeah. So I work very, very closely with our CD and brand director, Sarah Atkins. So we work together. So between us, we'll sign off everything. But she's much more the overview of the brand, and I'm much more into all the creative executions and all the ideas that go out.
So can you give me an example of some of the work you've done recently where you did your Leader of All Things Creative bit?
Oh, yeah, it's across the board on almost everything. So we have, I don't know if you know how well you know Not on the Highstreet, but basically we're an online marketplace. We work with sort of 4,500 small creative businesses. So we do everything in the creative department from, it could be big partner events for them. We call them our partners because we sort of work very closely together. And it could be anything from, we do big partner events to get them excited about sort of forthcoming campaigns, or to they're a big sort of community basically. So it might be anything from, we have award ceremonies, do a meet awards where they can all meet each other because it's really important. A lot of them work by themselves, or they've given up high powered jobs to go and start this business idea that they've always wanted to do. So a lot of them are working in isolation. So it's a good chance to get everybody together. So it could be signing off partner event creative. It could be emails, anything and everything, basically. Anything creative that goes through us. It could be internal comms.
And so for someone listening to this podcast who may not have even been to the website, can you just give, it's good to know that you have suppliers doing cool stuff and then call your partners, but can you give us a feel of what happens on the website and what someone might expect when they're there? Yes,
so we call ourselves the home of thoughtful gifts, and our whole reason for being, I suppose, is to encourage people to be the most thoughtful version of themselves. And primarily we're a gifting site. People obviously can buy things for themselves while they're there, but it's about really being there for all the different moments in life. So we used to, up until a couple of years ago, just only really deal with these super positive things, birthdays, christenings, anniversaries, things like that. And then we realised that makes up very little of people's years, basically. So now we try and cover off all sorts of occasions. So it could be you're just your best friend's a bit down and you need some inspiration to buy a gift. So we try and bring as much inspiration and creativity as we do unique products and things like that. So basically people come to us online. We're an online marketplace. People come to us looking for a gift, and we would hopefully give them a whoosh of inspiration and show them lots of things made or sourced by small creative businesses that they couldn't get just anywhere else. So hence Not on the Highstreet.
And what's the strangest gifting occasion that you've come across or encouraged?
One of them was a Hoover party. So somebody had been married for 23 years, I believe, and had had the Hoover since they had been married, and they were having a Hoover retirement party and needed a gift for that. We have...
They retired their device.
Correct.
They had a party.
Vacuum Hoover, and we're having a party and wanted a gift to celebrate such.
What was the gift?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. I mean, I think it was a personalised.
Dyson,
don't quote me on this, but I think it was a personalised print. So we have a lot of, for example, we have 4,500 partners. They're all hugely creative. So some people might be artists, some people make things, some people use skills handed down for generations to make these things. Other people are just ideas people, so they've come up with one idea for one brilliant product. So say, for example, for that, I don't know how weird this is going, but so it could be that if I were to suggest a gift now for that, we could get a bespoke portrait of said Hoover with said Hoover parents, so that could be a signed artistic portrait. We could show a quote, the funny thing that they always talked about in that household about hoovering, for example, or I don't know, whatever. We probably sell biscuits made in the shape of Hoovers, and if we don't, I'm sure somebody would make, literally anything and everything you could think of. I don't know what I'm going off on the Hoover tangent, but that's true.
It's not as per this,
glad you asked.
This podcast, it always goes to strange places I hadn't thought of. Okay, so how did you get this? You've been there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Can you give us a kind of 2-minute overview of Penny and how you got to that?
Came to be there.
With the most interesting job title that we've had on the podcast so far.
That's very kind. So I worked, I've had probably one of the most, I always said my career has been perhaps more eclectic than Lady Gaga's washing line or something. I started off trying to write films when I worked on reception.
Where did you work on reception?
For, strangely enough, it was the building that housed HHCL back in the day on Sydney Street in Chelsea. But there were like 9 or 10 different companies there as part of Chime Communications. And this lady came in all the time, Jo Parker, and said she was writing a book. She needed short stories. And it was for WaterAid, a charity book. So I said, yep, I'll contribute. Anyway, got to that weekend, hadn't sent the story in. It was on the Friday, the deadline was the Monday. So I emailed and said, I'm so sorry. I've not written anything, and I said I would. I feel terrible. I just haven't had the time. I'm really, really sorry. And she sent back such a lovely reply and said, oh my God, please don't worry at all. That's so kind. You were really enthusiastic. Don't worry at all. After I got the email, I thought, sod that. I'm going to write this story. Spent the weekend, wrote it, edited it, sent it off to her, and she featured it as like the star story in the book and was really, really nice. I didn't know who she was. She was lovely. She used to just come in sometimes. And then after that, we did the book launch and stuff. And then about a month after, she said, I'd really like to see you. I thought she was just this really nice lady. I didn't realise. And basically said, I really want you to come and work with me. Wanted me to get into creative. And I'd worked before for a company called Cunning Stunts, who were like guerrilla advertising agency. I don't know if you remember, many years ago, put Gail Porter's bum on the Houses of Parliament, and they were sort of one of the first people doing. So we used to build in. I used to work there 2 days a week, which were my days off from bar work before I started on reception, and we come up with these creative ideas. And so anyway, stopped doing that. Went and worked to get trained up in advertising, and then basically worked there.
Go back. So you were working for those guys, and you stopped, and then what? So what was that? Tell me about that journey. So that was, I was probably there for, I think, for about 1.5 years. Fantastic. That you would even get built into the budgets, money for being sued and stuff like that. You know, like that's how sort of big the ideas were back then, and you could really sort of be incredibly free with it and stuff. We had all sorts of clients from, I don't know, The Guardian to. Just lots of different people. Minnie, we worked on all sorts of different things, and it would just be to come up with guerrilla advertising ideas. So all word of mouth. We didn't really have a huge social thing then or anything else. So it was a very fantastic, probably grounds, I suppose, for me to start thinking like that. How we actually got into that, shall I tell you that really quickly? How we actually got into there was I worked at Jazz Cafe in Camden many years ago, behind the bar. Drove home one of the other bar girls one night, Hila, who was his Israeli art director, and she told her I love writing and all the rest of it. Writing's always been my background, and she needed somebody to work with. So on our 2 days off, we would always spend from 9 till 5 every Friday and every Monday working up ideas, getting booked together. We'd go and see various agencies. They were always really kind to us. We didn't know how to get into these different places, but we thought the guerrilla advertising thing sounded really cool, so we didn't have a book, we didn't have anything, didn't have a portfolio, so we wrote down lots of ideas on tiny pieces of paper for different brands, folded them up, put them in a jam jar, and put in a dice that was weighted that we got from the joke shop, and we put hire us or don't hire us on the sides, obviously, so it was weighted. So they would go to pick out the jam jar, pick out all these different ideas, and then throw the dice, and they would. So we sent off six jam jars and 5 calls we got back from all of these people, and
cunning stunt sounded like the most interesting one. So they were like, look, come in, we'll give you a shot. You guys are crazy, but they just gave us a chance. And so we started working there, and then we did various placements. I think a couple of weeks at Saatchi's, like 15, 20 years or something like this.
Yeah.
Very male. We were the only girls in the whole building.
Yeah,
I think, you know.
Just give me some context. When was this?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been where I am now for 3 years, coming up 4. Team Spirit. So after that was 10 years at the agency. So the late coming back to the lady I went to work for, Jo Park, who rescued me off reception, which I didn't see as being rescued at all at the time because I was writing films, so I was really happy about actually not doing anything and earning nothing. So now, absolutely, she completely changed my life. Went to work for her, loved this whole life, met another guy called Tim Nicholson, who to this day is my best friend, worked as art directors. We both became creative directors there over the years, head of copy, then creative directors, and we worked together for 10 years, best bunch of people I've ever worked for, but I'd sort of stopped learning, and we were churning out a lot of the same kind of work, and it was a financial services advertising agency, which if you can be creative there, you can do it anywhere. So I've gone from like one of the coolest, into this whole sort of discipline of being very financial and trying to even work out the jargon. My mum at one point said I was single-handedly responsible for the credit crunch because I was writing brochures I knew nothing about, basically. And then from there, just got to a point where I think I just, it was time and I needed to go. I love learning. That's my whole thing. And I always throughout that time.
Slight pause there.
Yeah.
You love learning. So tell me about that. Like, how do you learn? Is that by reading or by throwing yourself into strange situations?
A very good question again. So you wish you hadn't asked me. I don't know why I'm rattling on about
it.
Sorry.
It's perfect. Go on.
So learning wise, all the time in my own spare time, I couldn't do it was one of the questions I think, but I couldn't do my job if I wasn't picking up new stuff all the time. So most nights of the week, probably 5 nights out of 7, I'll go to Q&As, go to the theatre, read, try and sort of be reasonably disciplined. That now, I'm quite geeky and nerdy. That would have all been time spent in the pub, which was equally valuable. But just saying yes to stuff, going out, taking in what you can, and then all of that goes into creative work. I think, in my experience before, a lot of the people probably some of the more traditional agencies we did placements at were they only knew about advertising and Adland and things. That was very much what people would talk about, and you'd need to know the next big thing in advertising rather than the world. And our customers aren't in that, or people you're communicating with. So I think it's really important to try and find out more about other stuff, and also to challenge yourself to find out about things you don't want to go and do. So again, a few years back, I try and set myself a sort of challenge every year. So a couple of years back I said I'll write every day. Again, not unusual, people do that, but the only rules were I wasn't allowed to edit anything and I had to do something different every day. So it could be talking to somebody on a night bus, trying to do a handstand, or it could be something completely out of your comfort zone, was in like a West End play, did things that were sort of...
You had to do something different, or you had to write
do something different and then write about it.
Okay, so tell me about a couple of those.
So, oh my word, where to start? So I don't know, there's a sort of improv, experiential, brilliant piece of theatre called You Me Bum Bum Train that's on every year.
So can you, just for someone, I know it, but someone who doesn't know what that is.
So it's quite hard to explain, but let me try and do it carefully because you're not allowed to give the game away. The whole thing is you're not allowed to talk about it afterwards, but it's in it, so it does make it very difficult. So but essentially it's a piece of theatre unlike any others to this day, and I go to a lot of experimental stuff like that, where you go through an experience where you're the star, if you like. One of the most interesting ideas in communication I think there has ever been. But anyway, I volunteered to be a player, if you like, in that, to be one of the actors with no experience whatsoever, and I went and helped somebody through that scene. So you volunteer to do it and help somebody have the experience of their lives every evening, or lots of people, but they go through one at a time.
So just jump back one step. You said that the idea of putting someone in the centre of the creative idea is one of the most revolutionary or interesting ideas in communication. What do you mean?
One of those, I think, is because everything else is to the masses. Most communications, you think, through advertising agencies, you communicate to a lot of people. So emails, TV ads, all sorts of things like this. Arguably now interesting, which I'm sure we'll come on to technology-wise. there are ways of that of it being a lot more of a personalised experience, but this is an experience that is peak personalisation at its best, where you get to be a hero in your own and challenge yourself and do all these brilliant things. I shouldn't say anything else because I don't want to spoil it for anyone else that hasn't. But but that's basically that.
Gave it some context for people who don't necessarily understand that. So we were on your career journey. You've had the dice that said hire me. You've done a few placements. You've become a creative director. You've been at the financial services creative agency for about 10 years or so, and I think that's roughly where we got to. So.
That's right. So then one of my friends actually was writing for Not on the Highstreet. She was freelancing there, and she said, "Oh my God, this is the most perfect place. I've never met anywhere that would be more perfect for you." But I wasn't actively looking for a job at the time, but it sounded really interesting, and I loved the website and the idea of what they do. So I thought, okay, we'll just go and have a conversation. Went in to meet them, and even the reception is just beautiful. It's just full of interesting, creative, lovely things. And there was I don't know what those things are called. You used to get them in the 80s, you're probably too young, but you would put sticky label in one end into a sort of small machine and turn a dial with letters on it and stamp out.
What was that?
I don't know if it's called like Dymo
you make your own.
And you make your own sticky labels with.
You put on your lunchbox or your.
That's exactly right. So
I wasn't posh enough to have such a luxury.
So
clearly,
I'm not sure I was allowed one, but I'd certainly seen them down Woolworths. But anyway, so
and the thing you printed on was that really thick
sticky tape
with it
exactly embossed, or whatever the opposite of. Yes, exactly that. So you got raised text. It was the coolest thing on the planet. Anyway, so I've gone into my interview, sitting there very normally, and one of these was on the side, and every bit of me was like, "Do not touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it." And I just got up, and the door opened, and managed to, and somebody came in, so they hadn't seen me. I'd managed to get away with it. Anyway, went in, had the interview. It's brilliant. And at the end, she said. Somebody asked me something about gifting, or what's the most unusual gift you've ever been given, or something. Anyway, I started talking, and I was like,
"What is the most unusual gift you've given?"
A given or have been given? Either. That's a tough one.
Come back to it.
I'll come back to it. Anyway, so I mentioned this Dynamo thing, and I felt that we'd gotten enough that I could sort of raise it. And when I went through various other rounds of interviews, and on my first day on my desk was one of those, which was just so that... Anyway, it just is just the best place ever. Anyway, I could tell you all about that.
We'll cover more of that as we go along. So, you talked a lot about learning, and presumably reading as part of that, as well massively. As experiencing different stuff. I would love to go into more of the experiential theatre stuff that you've seen.
Yeah.
So, do you read marketing books?
I thought... Not as much as I should, probably.
I think everyone in marketing probably feels like that.
Yeah, I feel like the best... I really thought about this, and the best advertising... I'm not sure about marketing, but the best advertising book you could ever read isn't about advertising at all, and I would just say get John... In fact, I bought you one. It's John Steinbeck, which you probably haven't read since you've been at school, unless you're anything like me. That's for you. Because there is nothing more you could ever know about the human condition... Then I just got it at the station now. It wasn't that thoughtful, but I just saw it and thought, actually,
you literally bought a gift to a podcast. That is strong game. Thank you very much. If you haven't written in it, I insist.
I should do that before I leave. But this actually isn't my favourite. But anyway, but nobody writes about the human condition better than our friend John Steinbeck does. And when I first became head of copy. So the reason I sort of slightly went backwards was because it was such an amazing brand, and I so fell in love with it, and I sort of really wanted to get back into words again. And just, I think a lot of my creative directing job before had got very client-based, very sort of. It was less about the actual. I think I got further away from the work than I might have liked. So I came back to this, reread all of the Steinbecks in the days off that I had in between, and just threw myself into it full pelt, and then Still somehow I've managed up being creative director. I don't know quite how that, but anyway, but they are awesome. But John, so coming back to the reading one, sorry, I've read lots of good books. I still really like Luke Sullivan's Hey Whipple Squeeze This, even though it's like years old. I just think revisiting that again recently, I thought there was some real gems in there. But I wouldn't feel right without mentioning our friend Patrick Hollister's Directory magazine. This isn't a marketing book, but it is one of the greatest inspiration for our department. We use it all the time.
Sorry,
yeah.
Can you explain what it is?
So sorry, I keep forgetting this. Directory magazine is a flourishing, ridiculously creative, inspirational source of loads of great ideas. It's broken down by all sorts of different genres, digital ideas, different things like that. I bought a really old one with me, actually. This isn't to go through, but just to give you an example, I just opened this around, grabbed this off my desk. So this was actually from March 2017, and we get them all the time now. We still always do. So this isn't the most recent one, but I literally picked any at random, and you'll get ideas like VR being used to help stroke victims recover using a pilot scheme in Australia. So that's the other thing, it's global ideas. It's not just here. So that stretches the brain as well. You might find out about, that was another one I saw actually just on the train here, which was an idea where people were given space in an art gallery. They really wanted to find a union between Instagram and art gallery, so digital ideas and showing what. So basically, Culture Club was a new show on Belgian TV channel Canvas. It sought connections between high art and popular culture. The mission was to create a social media campaign to promote this new show, and people basically texted in their own pictures, and they got shown on the gallery walls alongside the absolute brilliance, all the classics. So that was produced by Law Meat, and that's another one. So basically, they just collect all the best creative ideas, and then we'll put them into this brilliant book, which I read all the time. It's just great to flick through for inspiration.
And so tell me how that works with your team. You said this is a kind of key resource for you guys. So
yeah.
How does that, how do you use that to generate ideas?
So we come in and this arrives, it sits on my desk for ages, I disappear for several hours and then come back and say, oh my gosh, the team read it. Every now and then Patrick might come in and talk to us. Patrick Hollister, who was working at Google up until January.
We've had Patrick on the show.
You know Patrick well, you're a good friend of Patrick's. So he is the editor-in-chief of this, so basically puts all these together, but I will share them with the team. So sometimes he'll come in and do a talk, and then that sort of inspires us. But it just is a really great resource for us because we're not smack bang in the middle of Adland. It's a great way of us to see all these ideas from all over the world that just inspire, basically. So it's not anything that we would obviously use or copy, it's just things that seep in a different way. So when I said to you earlier, ideas should come from everywhere, feel hugely passionate about people getting out of, going and seeing things that they wouldn't normally see. If I really like hip-hop music, I should go and see rock every now and then, which I do. Whether I like it or not, it's just something to pull you in a different direction, and I think that's quite important.
So I'm fascinated by this. So going out and searching for inspiration, how much of it is like serendipity and how much of it is like I'm going to force myself to go and watch a rock and roll band versus hip hop? How do you do that? That's
a very good point. Because I'm old and greying, now I'm probably more biased towards certain things than I realise, so I try and pull myself out of that. For example, I know who I really like as theatre directors, or who's going to show me something really experimental, or music-wise, I know what I like, and all the rest of it. So I did become this was in a rebellion to my own self, by the way, because I did get to the point where I was really like, I know what I'm like, and therefore I will keep doing what I like. It's the same thing with machine learning. This is actually a great thing to bring this back to technology. So the reason that I was initially a bit against the idea of machine learning or computational creativity and things like this is because I felt like if I happen to have shown a liking for blue jumpers, I don't want to suddenly see more blue jumpers. That was just a whim I was having that day. As creative people and as seminal beings, and I feel like that's not your phone for once, which is...
It's not. We're getting a company. There's a counterpoint by the cleaners.
Excellent. So anyway, so I feel like that was my rally against it. What I've since realised, obviously, and have learnt, is that doesn't have to be the case at all. You can show people, you can get to know what people like and almost show them the opposite, because that's often how, like, I'm reasonably middle class, shall we say, a bit rough around the edges perhaps, but middle class nevertheless. I love Mike Leigh, really gritty. I love anything with Paddy Considine in it. I like really messed up, dirty, bloody, horrible, weird, arty dramas, foreign films, stuff like that. So if you looked at what I looked at on websites, it wouldn't be at all. I look like the most normal person on earth perhaps, but and even my behaviour might show that, things that I might have looked at, but creatively, I don't want to be shown what I've seen. I want to be shown something new. And I think now technology is taking us into a really huge, exciting space where that's possible and people are aware of that. So rather than saying, they like X, let's show them X, we're now saying, if they like X, let's show them Y, or let's challenge people's perceptions and keep them interested.
I had a really interesting theory the other day about music, and I can't remember who said it, but basically the way that the theory goes is that we like music that sounds like other music we like, obviously, but the stuff we love is when there's a slight change in it.
Yes.
Right, so I'm the opposite of you. Cannot be doing with hip hop. All sounds the same. Like, all sounds the same to me. Whereas rock and roll, like, whereas if I listen, like, because I don't buy the medium, like I have no emotional response to it. The nuances and the changes are completely lost on me.
Yes.
Whereas with like rock and roll or the Beatles, I'm a huge fan. If I hear like an outtake of "All You Need Is Love," I can spot all the little things that are different.
Yeah.
And the theory goes that when we choose things that we like, it's when it's very familiar to us, but there's a kink. There's something that kind of takes us in a slight different direction.
Yeah.
Which I think is super interesting.
I think that is super interesting. I think actually that is interesting, because similarly, I think a lot of my love of hip hop, apart from a bit of a thing about a dirty bass line, was over the years, and particularly partly it's nostalgia and growing up, and that was a big scene that I was sort of into, but also partly because it's so lyrically good hip hop. I should have added that in there, obviously not the rubbish about guns and I think that it's lyrically brilliant. So I could hear, if that then showed me something else, if there was an algorithm, say for example, that understood the kind of, is algorithm the right word?
Yes.
Excellent. If there was an algorithm that understood the kind of music that I normally like listening to, but then showed me, but was clever enough to understand that actually what I liked about that music was the lyrics rather than anything else, and could show me other music that was brilliantly played with words and was lyric and all the rest of it, fantastic. That then I'm interested, because actually I don't just like hip hop. I like all kinds of, but that would normally probably be a common theme.
So, do you like Discover Weekly on Spotify?
No.
You never not like don't like it, or you've never come across it.
Just remember, I'm like someone I don't know what it is.
Right. Okay. So the way it did work was that if you had a kind of a catalogue of songs on Spotify that you liked, so NWA, whatever, like all of the bands that you like, and I liked exactly the same bands and exactly the same songs, but I liked one song that was different, then you would get served up that song, but on a scale of millions and millions of people.
Yes.
So you 5 million people all like the same kind of music, but actually all of you haven't heard all of the same songs, so it would do your playlist. But recently, apparently, they've changed it to put a human element in there. So actually, that human element of creativity is married up with the computational element.
So that's totally my sweet spot. I've gone from being completely against technology in some ways, because there were things that I always discovered that I thought were stupid. QR codes being one of them. Have you done those? Right, bear with me on this.
No,
bear with me.
On, let's hear it.
But certain things like that, because, and there's a big caveat to this, and I've since changed my thing, but because they possibly they're in their infancy. But for example, right, QR codes. Again, this was the other thing in agency life where people would say, "Oh, let's do a QR," because it's a new thing. Let's do a QR code. That's what everyone's doing. Shiny new object. But rather than going, "What's the customer need?" Always start with the customer, not the shiny new object, right?
Yeah.
But then it was the things that got in the way. So it's like, right, let me just get this straight. I'm at bus stop when I've got time to do this, but even then, I must download this QR reader doodah thing, hold the phone up against the thing to get a load of information that probably wasn't, which was where I was at, because that was the ones that I tried. So I was like, this is crazy. This is like putting an object in the way of what I'm trying to be doing, okay? But, and similarly with things like when the watches first came out, my friend Tolkien, who's probably one of the brilliantest, well, apart from his name, it's fantastic, but worked at our old agency, Digital Absolute Guru, he would have the latest in anything. So Apple Watch, first thing, text, look how brilliant this is, he would say to me. Text, I'll send you a text, Penny, how cool is my watch? And it would come through, Puggy, how clone is my... And I was like, this is stupid. Google, Glass, the same sort of thing. How many people do you know in your office wearing them? None, because it's this sort of thing, right? However, my massive caveat is I've since gone the other way. My whole thing is tech for good or tech for creativity. I think I was either looking at the wrong tech or things not being used in the right way. So, for example, I won't be able to think of an example now, where... Even that example I sort of explained to you earlier from Directory, where people, VR headsets, we're not just using those to play a computer game or look around a room of my imagining, we're using it to understand what it must be like to have had a stroke and therefore empathise and therefore be more ready to help. Or it doesn't have to be a needy cause, it's just something that's like... or even fun. Like I've had this idea where I was thinking, just because I've recently been dieting like a mental... what about if you had something in your fridge where every time you open the salad drawer, you got a little rave tune or something brilliant to sort of reward you, but every time you went to what I call my Christmas cupboard, which is just full of all the stuff that you would have at Christmas, it was like, swimsuit or something. This is like, but then that's okay. That was a funny idea. Obviously, that was in the pub one night. That was come up with. But what if then that was used for diabetic people, or you can take it one step further. All these, those are the kind of ideas where I could see things being really interesting, things being personalised. But personalised well. This is another thing I'll come on to, but one of my bête noirs is sloppy retargeting or sloppy personalisation, or things not being used to the best of what they were born to do and how brilliant they are.
Well, let's get into it. So we discussed downstairs that personalisation, on-site personalisation, I'm guessing, is a focus of yours. And it sounds like you've gone through this journey of computational creativity, it's destroying everything, to kind of maybe find
this could be awesome,
middle ground. So tell me a bit about your view on that.
So in some ways online personalisation works in the same way as offline. So just to give you a bit of background, one of the things that was always really big at Not on the High Street was personalisation. Right, we were doing it before everybody else was, and all this kind of thing. So by that 12, 13 years ago when we were born, was really sort of cutting edge. Other people weren't doing a lot of stuff like that. Nowadays, you can go into Asda and see something with your name on it, sort of thing. But what we do is find the small creative businesses that are genuinely innovative, bespoke, customised ideas. So, for example, if you got married and you were a girl, bear with me, sorry, just realised, if you had a wedding bouquet is what I'm trying to say, you sort of wanted somewhere to keep that, we have artists who could now, you send them one of the flowers or a couple of the flowers off your wedding bouquet, they would press the flowers, illustrate them into a design which you could then get made into a cushion, which you would keep on your sofa all the time. So when your friends come around, that's a talking point. Oh, did you actually know it's not just a print from anywhere else? That is my actual wedding bouquet, or it could get made into a bangle, or, there's things that are really precious. In the same way with digital personalisation, again, in the old days, you would get, hi, Tim, have you seen this offer? And you're like, okay, my name's Tom for a start, and don't act like you know me, because you don't. I just happen to, you've used my data and you used it badly. Now, I think there are so many brilliant ways of personalising, customising bits of tech or website. If you want to use our website, for example, that's something that we're in the process of doing, is getting a personalised dashboard. So we might know the kind of edits that you prefer to look at. Maybe you're really into homeware, but you quite often buy birthday gifts from us, or we know that you've got young children, so we might show you those, but we'll also show really inspiring edits, the rainy day collection, or just because, or I don't know, all sorts of different things. So I think it's trying to personalise, to mix what we know as human beings with what an algorithm might tell us this person is interested in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that personalisation is something that I've talked a lot about, and certainly in my old role, that was something I was selling in pretty hard, because I still don't understand the argument of, would you rather create one generic thing for everyone, or create lots of small things for individuals? Creative teams at agencies have a very, very hard time understanding that. But part of the problem is that you've got location-based executions and name-based executions, and at some point you got an email that said, "Hi, Penny," and if they got it right, and you're like, "Ooh, I got my name right." But then the second time, part was interesting, and then now it's at the point, if it's not personalised, then it's a problem.
Yes.
And then there's the whole thing about, you can match content to the weather. Like, how many times is it going to be shitting down outside?
Yeah.
That's really going to make a change of decision about the thing you're going to buy. So I love it as a technology, but I'm kind of waiting for creative people to really do
harness
something,
it.
Turn it into a story, fundamentally.
I completely agree, and also things like understanding when it's to use it in a creative way to still impress people. Like, we had the thing with the copy team where I was sort of saying, this is so base, I can't even believe I'm talking about it, but this a couple of years ago, and we sort of said, okay, how can we really use this to inspire people or to make it more creative? So we had this beauty email, and we were trying to work out if we said, hey Penny, here's 3 ways to make yourself Pennylicious or something. So we had to work out the vowels at the end of everybody's names, because if it was Pennylicious, it ends in a Y, so it sounds like it's already got an A there, but Tom would need Alicious on it. So we went through the whole names of our database, and then we were like, why are we doing this? But it was at least to try and raise a smile, or to try and do something else with it that was a bit more like... we worked it out. I can't tell you. We worked it out, and it would have got sent, and that was that. But I think actually it was relatively easy. There were only 3 endings to the word. It was either because of phonetically how they sounded. Right. So each one you would teach the computer to say... teach the computer, this is how old-fashioned I am. I don't know the right names for these things, but you would teach the computer to say, okay, if it ends in any of these letters, give it this personalisation. If it ends in this one, you would do it like that. So it's just things to try and have a bit more fun with it, or try and... one of the things that we're in the middle of doing is trying to inspire people with other ways to customise. So rather than... people are... most of our customers, by the nature of our site, are already creative, thoughtful people. They're not just your everyday people. They're people that really want to get thoughtful gifts in the first place, but maybe just don't have enough time, or life being what it is. We've all been there. It's like before a birthday or before something, and we're like, I really, really like this person. I really want to get them something brilliant. What do I get? So it's sort of inspiring people in the right way. So things like personalisation, rather than just putting a name on something, how can you inspire, how would you do this in other ways? So maybe it's a memory, or maybe it's how do we prompt those kind of things. So we're in the middle of looking at stuff that can try and help with that.
Yeah, so tell me about it. So you have a gift matcher? Is that part of the personalisation journey? Or is
in a way, it is. Actually, it's slightly, it's not copy-based, but it absolutely is. So the gift matcher tool is on our website at the moment. Have a play with it. It's very much in its infancy, but we're in the middle of doing some really, really exciting stuff to it. So essentially, the gift matcher tool... you go online, you're looking for a thoughtful gift. I think it asks you, there are various stages that you go through. So who you're buying for, is it your brother, sister, work friend, nephew, niece? Are they a grown-up person, a lady person? Whatever the different things are. So we work out ages, what are they into, why are you buying this gift? It's their birthday, it's their anniversary, I don't know, they need cheering up, whatever, these kind of things. And what are they into? Sorry, that was the one. Is basically, are they into a foodie? Are they a stylish? Whatever. Yeah. But we're trying to avoid the more generic stuff here. Most brands could kind of say gifts for gardeners or gifts for so and so. How do we really drill down and make that exciting? So then you just go through 4 short stages, and you get to a collection of 30 curated gifts. So all of those gifts have been hand selected by our brilliant curators to try and say, okay, there's something really unique about this, you can't get this just anywhere, or we think that they really like this because these are favourites for our customers, or there's all sorts of different things that we bring into that, and also that we're doing different iterations of it all the time. So free text boxes will be the next thing, you know, and just kind of moving on from there, basically.
And is that done with machine learning, or is it just a calculation? So if someone's a female and a foodie and not a child, is there just like a fixed list, or?
It's a real mixture. So at the moment it's fixed, but it won't be, is the idea. So we'll just keep moving on basically until we get to that point. What will be amazing is if we got to a point where it really was much more bespoke to that person, which is where we'll get to at Gift Matcher Tool 2 point something. Yeah.
So personalisation is one of your shiny new objects, but your other is
the usability hub.
I couldn't believe it. We sat downstairs and had a drink, and I was like, "What's your shiny new object?" And I am open to any guest talking about anything, as as long as it has some kind of marketing relation. And you're like the usability hub, and we just met, and so I was doing a lot of smiling and nodding, going,
"What the heck is that?"
So for those listeners who may not understand what the usability hub is, can you tell us a bit more?
It is and on the Highstreet, we're really, really big believers in putting customers first, right? Everything we do, we start with that, and everything comes back to our mission of how can we make people be the most thoughtful version of themselves, right? So with that in mind, it wouldn't be right to just do things that we think are right, or that the market is doing, or other people's shiny new objects, for example. What we try and do is say, what do customers really, really need? The Usability Hub is a online video sort of testing system, if you like, that goes out live to people and allows us to test anything from new creative ideas to the gifts themselves to how you choose to shop, all sorts of different things. And within 48 hours, we can have genuine customer feedback. So it's not like research group. I used to hate research group. Well, actually, I used to really like them because they're fascinating. But I hated I never trusted the results. It's like, especially on things like TV ads, if we put it into research, we all know some of the best creative TV ads bombed in research, but flew when they actually went out. I think there's got to be some legislation for that. But if this is people on their own genuinely shopping, and you're seeing everything from what they're interested in, what they're not interested in, this sort of thing.
So help me understand this a bit better. So what's the user experience? So I'm not on the high street, and then do I know I'm interacting with Usability Hub?
Yeah.
Is you top, and do I have to be like a special customer, or do I have to sign up for it, or is it?
That's a very good question. I don't honestly know is the answer how we source. I don't know, but you would definitely know that you were doing it.
So I'm going through my shopping journey.
What we normally do is a cross-reference of people. So it would be customers that shop with us all the time, customers that never shop. So there's certain ways of figuring out who these people are, which would be through our inside team, I imagine. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But yes, so you would then know, and then would you agree to be part of this sort of testing, and you would just carry on as normal. So you would just, whether it was searching for a gift or we would show you something. So there's two different ways we test there. Normally it's that. We also have an online community of a set number of people who, again, is a cross-section of customers that we would go out and ask, but they are very specifically, it's not them in action. This is video of hotspotting and various other things.
What are those various other things? So
it could be anything from where their eyes go.
So they allow the camera to track them? Okay.
Yeah, so it could be that.
Is it do emotion tracking? Is that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Our UX team are absolutely brilliant and of deal with all of that.
So basically you're going, right, we're now going to track what you do while you're on this journey. Just go and do whatever you want to do. And then you'll throw them different bits of user experience or products.
Yes.
And then you can... And so how is that collated?
So essentially, and also, we might not every time use it, but I think it just gives us a massive steer on how customers genuinely shop and what people do. So I think for me that was something really exciting in that, because it's firstly because we're allowed to turn it around so quickly, so it enables us to it's a pretty instantaneous thing if we're sort of getting people to test at the same time, but also because it means we're much more likely to be able to tailor something to what people actually do want and how they shop. So there are things that we thought were brilliant. They were just all like... so, for example, what could we say on that? Even simple things like whether people want to get straight to product. So one of the big things for us is, do people really want to go straight to unique product, or do they want to find out more about the partners? That's basically our two sort of USPs. So on the one hand, the thing that sets us apart is a lot of the research we've done, customers are coming back saying, actually, I don't want everything delivered in an hour and that I just click on and get that. I'd rather something that was made by hand and something that I can really give with pride and it's been made with integrity by somebody who really loves making it. And so that's a really, really important thing, and we know that. That's come back relentlessly as an overwhelming thing, particularly this year, in fact, about how people are choosing to shop. However, if I'm buying a gift for my sister's birthday and it's this week, I'm just looking for something she hasn't got before. I don't care if it's made by polar bears in the Antarctic. I just want a really, really good gift. So that sort of becomes secondary. But all the time, so it could be that we're just asking about questions like, so for example, on our partner pages, all our partner pages are completely unique. We have 4,500 partners. They're all completely different. They write their own storefronts, and that's brilliant. They show their creativity, show their individuality. Do I get from that? And then you can go into product. But for example, we could put on this usability hub, or as I call it, the whiz-bang machine, that actually you want to put products first. So we would test whether you go straight into product and finding all about that and what's unique about that, or whether you find out about the partner story behind it. Because, for example, we did some videos with The Guardian at the end of last year, and there were 4 or 5 products on there that I thought were great, but I didn't really know a lot about them. And I work there. You know, all of a sudden we looked at the story behind them, and we went and filmed the guys making the products and why they'd come up with the business idea in the first place and what was incredible. I bought all of those for like Christmas last year, and it genuinely is. It completely changes the way you think about things. So for us as a brand, do customers care more about the story behind it and a talking point for the piece? Do they care more about the fact that it's unusual and unique and they can't get it somewhere else, or it's exclusive to us? Or is it more about what was the third one that I didn't say? The partner or the speed, exactly. Things like so. Anyway, these are the kind of conversations we're having all the time to help customers get what they want, and that's the sort of thing that we could test in the whiz-bang machine.
So that's so interesting. You've got those. Didn't break. Very, very pro here. I'm showing the object progress. Apologies. So you've got those kind of 3 hugely kind of divergent needs or motivations, which is a total head fuck.
Yes.
Surely for user experience. So how do you deal with that? Do you focus on different users or different need states for different times of the week, or is it all about provenance when it comes to Christmas, or is it all about speed when it comes to Christmas? How do you?
We take all. That's a very good question, actually, and you've horribly. So you just grasp that really quickly, because lots of people don't appreciate the many nuances of getting all of those things right. What we're trying to do, again, as we talked a bit about earlier, but it's the mix of the bit that we know as human beings, and what the machines are telling us, and trying to integrate those things. So say, for example, some of it, and again, data is another massive layer on top of that, and using the data wisely. So if we say, for example, even in things like social posts, we know that customers are much more likely to want to look at new things on a Sunday evening. And some of that's quite logical. Yes, you're more likely to have time. You're not rushing to work, or you're not, those sort of things. But some of them are far more... then you drill down to that. Is it new partners or new product? Which of those things? So we just test continuously across all of those things until we try and get to as sweet a spot as possible. It's the easiest answer.
So for the last 10 minutes, I'm going to put you through your paces a little bit.
Oh, God.
Thank you for sharing those shiny new objects. It's going to be so cool to look at the site after this with all of that stuff in mind. So what has been your biggest work failure that has ultimately set you in the right direction for success?
I'm really ashamed to say this, but I'm going to, because I think it's important to be honest and move on. After everything I've said about personalisation, my biggest work mess up ever was when I first started working for the company, and worked with a bunch of copywriters who were absolutely brilliant. I wrote this, so it wasn't even to them. I was like, yeah, let's do personalisation. And it was on a Mother's Day email, and the subject line was something like, Penny, I can't honestly remember, it's something like, Penny, look at this adorable guy, or something like this, and it opened to a massive picture of a baby, and I trusted that our data was better than it was, and also didn't think it through, and we got loads of people afterwards.
And it said, what? Look at this.
It's something, I can't remember what the actual line was, but it was something like, there was some reference to the baby
and
inside the email.
The image and the...
No, it did match, but loads of people commented afterwards just saying, I've gone through miscarriage, I've gone through, which I would never have thought about, and I cried for about 3 days straight, was just distraught that for somebody that's supposed to champion this stuff so brilliantly, I'd got it so monumentally wrong, and I had no idea. And the only reason I'm talking about it, because I was so horrified, it still makes me feel sick to even think about it, was because it was such a valuable lesson, and there's not one thing that I don't know or don't make sure that I find out about customer groups. You know, how would I have felt if I got that? And that's all I kept thinking about. What if that would have been one of my best friends? You know, and it was completely innocent, stupid, ignorant, but innocent mistake. I just hadn't seen. It was going to, you know, women only. It was a Mother's Day one. I thought the Democrat, you know, it just was. But I'll never never ever make that mistake again. And I think it was. Looking back, hugely arrogant. It just was those things that you have to think through to the nth degree for all customers, and to make sure that, again, with anything to do with personalisation, it's assumptions and presumptions that you don't sort of look at. So I think that was a massive learning for me. And similarly, on a lighter note, but there were ones like, because we're so proud of our uniqueness and people doing things differently, you know, and getting unusual gifts for people that are really thoughtful. You know, don't get boring old socks for Mother's Day. And we've got partners that make socks, that make brilliant socks, that, you know, there's just things like that you sort of realise all the time. So yeah, our socks won't be like anyone else's. They'll be the most awesome socks on the planet, but they're still, you know, so it's things like that. That was a massive, massive learning for me. That was, I mean, I almost left. I think I was felt so horrible that I could have upset one person, let alone on a blanket email. That was it just was hideous. But anyway, it wasn't about me, it was about them. But yeah, that was a big learning. I won't do that again. That's for sure.
And it's interesting to hear you say earlier that Not in Highstreet is all about the customer first, and that gets said a lot in agencies. And my kind of pushback on that is, if you put the customer at the centre, you wouldn't advertise it to them at all, because no customers walking around going, "Oh, please advertise to me." Like,
yeah.
But it's interesting that you took a kind of agency-ish mindset. Going, I've had a great idea, plus technology. What could go wrong?
Yeah,
and that's really admirable that you've fessed up about this. Certainly on a anyway. So I'm really grateful for that. But had you stuck to the company philosophy of keeping the customer in the centre, you would have definitely done that work. So I think that's such an interesting story.
It's really tough, and also that was a handful of people. There were loads of people that would have, you know, sort of gone out to. The other thing is, though, it's not that we wouldn't advertise at all. That's true to a certain degree, but our whole thing's about inspiring people. So it's not just selling at people. It's like gifts they might, or ideas they might not have had, or things like that. So you could argue it that way equally. That's.
Yeah, if you're providing a service at that point, aren't you? I think that's the sort of branded utility of
yes.
it. You know, I was talking to Justin Cook at UNICEF yesterday, and he was talking about his smartwatch, which was his shiny new object. And I said, well, all right, then, you know, what apps do you use? And it's all the ones that provide a utility. It's when a brand can provide entertainment, utility, and a purpose all together, when it works yes. really well. So, just slightly anxious of time.
Yeah.
I'd love to know your answer to this question. If you had a digital media budget of 10 million quid to get any message out there, professional or personal or a slogan, you have a blank slate, what would you say? 10 million quid.
10 million quid, hands down, absolutely. This isn't a work thing, I would have done this anyway, just about being more thoughtful. Because, and genuinely, I think if we were just all gave a tiny bit more thought, it's maybe not the biggest message, it's not about war, it's not anything else, just being a tiny bit more thoughtful in our daily lives, that I genuinely believe that can move mountains.
And what would it say on this? What would be your singular message about being more thoughtful?
What would be my singular message about being more thoughtful? Think of others. Imagine that's probably one of the best bits. But it's just simple. Yeah. But I think it's just that. Think of others, because empathy is the probably greatest emotional tool we possess, and without it, we're all buggered. I think I really do believe that. And I think about making things better, taking things and making them better. So another thing I did really quickly was things like the alleyway near where I live in Harlesden, still when I've been there for 15 years, is full of like drug dealers and prostitutes. It's not a great place to be, so we always used to all walk round. And I was like, why are we all walking around? Change it, do something about it. So I spent ages doing a secret alleyway project, which I've never haven't put anywhere, but it was just for us, and we would just do different creative things in the alleyway. So put up a bookshelf full of different sorts of books for all sorts of different people. I did unround a toilet roll. Actually, my dining room table was quite good fun. Found a load of poems from all sorts of different places in the world that were less than 100 lines long, so they were fit on a sheet of toilet paper. Cut them out, spray mounted them piece by piece onto a different piece, wound it back up, and then hung that there. And it's like 3 poems. Tear one and take one. And
you did this in Harlesden?
In Harlesden.
And when did you do this?
This was probably about 2-3 years ago, but I had different ones I did all the time. So that was a couple of examples. But people did. I never stood by it. I just walk up and down, so nobody sort of saw it coming. But people did just take one and move it on, and just little things like that. Nobody knew, haven't blogged about it, haven't written about it. It's just things that you can do that will change somebody's... And if it's one person... that's cool. If it's loads of people, that's even cooler. And that's where I think technology is absolutely awesome. If we can get that thoughtful message out to as many people as possible, I feel like I've sort of found my spiritual home a bit at North, not on the High Street, because that's what we're trying to do.
That is a very strong answer to that question. So I'm going to keep rattling through these because this is excellent.
Go.
In terms of your career, what has been the best investment of your time, energy or money?
Without a shadow of a doubt, the stuff I do outside of work. Just keep going out, people. That's all I can say. So everything we said, it doesn't even have to be money, but energy and time with the other ones. If you go down a street, same street we go down all the time. This isn't my idea, it's somebody else. I can't remember who it is, somebody really famous, but I can't remember. But look at somebody told me, go down the same street that you walk down every day, but only look for red things. So that you look for different things you'd never normally seen. Find a date. Sophie Carl, French artist, superb. Went to see her in Paris last year, absolutely brilliant. She would only eat green food for a week or something. It's not to do with colours, or only go through foods from the alphabet. So you only eat things starting with A. Or it sounds wacky, but just try something different. Go and do this in your daily lives. Go and be interesting.
Yeah, I like that. So what is the most useful thing you've bought with your own money that you have used for work?
Again, this is really embarrassing, but it's like fancy stationery, because I write all the time and I constantly have notebooks I buy off the site and things like that, but I really like fancy stationery. And the other thing, again, this will make you laugh.
Get your fancy stationery out. Do you have any?
Do you have some with me?
Talk through this.
Get stuff done. It's in gold leaf. That's actually one of our partners.
So I'm looking at a notebook with a kind of gold kind of relief saying "Get stuff done." It's very beautiful. The Old English Company. Who are
brilliant. They're one of our partners. So this is actually
this gold,
even got gold along the side actually.
Trim,
but very often I stick things to the front and things like this. This is actually interesting as well. So when I was going through thinking about prep for this, this was in the pub. Sorry, table taken, just gone to the bar, I'm coming back. So this was the page I tore out and stuck on because it had all the work stuff in it. So anyway, I digress. So that was one, and the other one is probably the most boring answer on the planet, but my phone. And this will also make you laugh. Tolkien, who was the digital guru who I used to work with, he always used to upgrade my phones for me because I'd never get around to doing it. And he was horrified at this and said, "What is the best app? You finally got a what they call smartphone. What's your favourite app?" And I was like, "Notes. It's brilliant." He's like, "That just comes with the phone, Penny. That is not. That's nothing." But I use Notes more than any other probably bit of tech I've got. Is that?
And do you sync that up with a cloud, or is it?
No, don't be stupid. Just keep it all in the notes. But it just means.
Lose your phone?
I don't know about that. But Tolkien probably has actually synced it. He's probably hooked me up. But yeah, just to go through in this, and also it's really good to look back from years and years ago at the notes, and there could be anything, brilliant ideas, stuff to brilliant advice like. Don't be a dick.
Because I'm really torn at the minute between using a physical notebook. I've got one in my hand, as do you. And using Google Docs, because if you have a meeting with someone, I find it's really important I capture all the stuff.
Can I tell you something really quickly about Doodle Docs? Again, that was another one of these things that we do where we try and challenge ourselves to do different things all the time. And one of them was when Google Docs first came out. There was long story, but there was a guy that used to live in South Africa, and he was a writer, brilliant published writer, but anyway, friend of a friend, and we started talking and came up with this idea to write a story where we had to each write in it every day as different characters, to move the story on, but you weren't allowed to. So you could edit what the other person had written. So it's like,
oh really?
Yeah. So you can't be pressed at all, and it was horrific, but brilliant. So you come back after a day at work, and it would change. It was, to this day,
and you could change anything.
Change anything at any point. Really? One of the most creative processes I've ever been through writing was, I'm just going to talk really quickly because we've only got a minute.
No, you're fine.
You sure? But basically, because it teaches you not to have an ego, when you were saying earlier, not to have an ego, because you're like, I really like that line, why have they got rid of it, blah, blah, blah. But you have to go with it because it's joined. But secondly, because it's just a fascinating process of being pulled every which way. It's like the tightest brief you've ever been given. It's like the best game of consequences in the world. And we work on Doodle, I don't know why I can't say it today, Google Docs, all that at work, that's how we work. So all the copy team work on them. But anyway, very good.
So in the last 5 years, which new belief or behaviour has improved your work life?
In the last year alone, Trello, I would say, which again for a creative person.
Tell me about how you use Trello.
So we use it for all our jobs coming in, but for me, so our production team put all the different jobs that are live on there, and then copywriters will add copy to it. The designers, well, they work together, but then designers will upload. So, for example, we've done an email, they will upload it on there. We can all comment. It just makes it so much easier. Move jobs from Penny to review or Sarah to review into.
So you use it very functionally.
We use it very functionally for that, but also things like leading up to a Christmas campaign. All the different, we could plot out all the different. Yeah, we do use it very functionally, but it's saved my life. It's brilliant.
So, if someone is listening to this podcast who wants to get into the industry, and they're smart and driven and up for it and all the basics, what would you suggest that they do?
Absolutely rebel and don't do what they tell you. Anything they tell you, don't do what I tell you. Even rebel against that. I think it's really sad. Many years ago, I think even when I first started going around, they take any. If you were a binman, it didn't matter. If your ideas were brilliant, you had a good spec book. That's all that mattered. You'd have to figure out how to do that. But if you had some smarts about you, you could watch and learn. For example, I think nowadays, even got to the point when I was looking. The first question a lot of creative teams ask, have you been to Watford, or have you, probably was about I don't know how many years ago, but it's very much they were expected ranks, and I think anyway, it's a lot harder to get into you get a lot more of the certain types of people in some ways in advertising now. In some ways it's become much more diverse, which is brilliant, but it's not even that. There are so many people trying to snap you at your heels and wanting creative jobs. Stand out. If you wouldn't believe the amount of CVs I've got for copywriters, and they're all just CVs. Say something different. I'm a human being. Make me smile. I've seen all these different things, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean, show me what you can do. Don't tell me what you can do. And it comes back to that old thing. But anything exciting, anything different, just be different. Make yourself stand out, and don't listen to what they tell you. If you think, and find somebody who will be a mentor for you or will champion you a bit.
So let's wrap it up there. If people would like to get in touch with you or follow what you do, what would you suggest that they do?
That's a really good question. I don't know. By the way, can I just say, I'm not on LinkedIn. I'm not on social media. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on any. Somebody said, I think it was a headhunter a while ago, tried to get in touch with me, and they said, you're like the Scarlet Pimpernel. So I don't know. I'm not really around. But I don't email me, I guess. Yeah, get in touch.
Are you prepared to share your email?
Oh! How many people listen to this podcast?
You don't want to give your email out. I'll tell you what, if the listener wants to get in touch, then you can contact me on LinkedIn or Twitter.
That's really kind. That's really kind.
Hopefully I'm not going to get inundated with...
For both of you that are interested, please do let Tom know. I think you're safe.
So just to kind of recap on the stuff that kind of stood out for me, I think it's brilliant how clear you are on Not on the High Street awareness of itself, and like the home of thoughtful gifts. To get down a kind of mission in 4 words is remarkable, and providing a utility as well as an e-commerce site to help people become the most thoughtful version of themselves is so concise and rare as hen's teeth. And what did you say? I got this wrong. It's a career more varied than Lady Gaga's costume rack, which I think is hilarious. And the idea of being rebellious to your own self, I think is really powerful, whether that's forcing you to go look at all the red things, or go and listen to the genre that you don't like. And thanks for sharing your views on personalisation. That is really interesting, and the usability I've never heard of, and so it was great to hear more about the whiz bang machine, and your billboard stuff, your digital media budget you'd spend thinking of others, and really the power of empathy, and I think that really ties really nicely into what I said at the start about not on the high street, and on really understanding, being empathetic about your customer. So you've tied everything together beautifully.
Yay!
Penny, thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you very much. Thank you.